Welcome to another edition of Ask Isaiah. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube page. I'm Isaiah Rhodes, and I'm here with a frequent collaborator, good friend, NBA enthusiast, overall great basketball mind, amongst other things, Frank Teah.
What's up,
Uh,
Isaiah?
Frank, I wanted to tap in with you because the Lakers got a big win last night, obviously against the undermanned Sixers team
Hmm.
without Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons for an extended period of time. But I felt that the particular performance, specifically by Anthony Davis last night, and then when we go back to LeBron's previous performances against the Pelicans over the last couple of days or so, really have created a groundswell of MVP uh, support for LeBron in a way that we hadn't really heard over the last couple of months or so.
Hmm.
He had just won Player of the Month this past month, which we'll get into in a little bit. I don't necessarily agree with that, but more so just his performance over the last couple of months or so has developed in a way to where he could be in the running for MVP. And on my end, I think that Giannis is the clear front runner, but if things go a certain way over the next couple of weeks, that could change. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and just a couple of things around the league. So what do you think about where the Lakers are right now, and how do you feel about LeBron's performances?
The Lakers, I think, look good. They still go through moments where they don't like beat up everyone they're supposed to, right? So they got the big win against Denver before the break. Then they came out the gates looking really strong. Got some really quality wins. Got the win on Boston during the weekend. Got the two wins on New Orleans. They were biggest, right? New Orleans is out to play us, but Zion is playing out of his mind, and they're a team with momentum. So those were two good wins. LeBron looked like he was 28 again in those wins, so that was good. AD struggled in one of the games, but AD had, like you said, a killer game last night. I think LA is looking pretty good. I guess this weekend will be their big test. They got the Bucks and the Clippers, so that'll be the measuring stick. Also, if LeBron can play good against both teams, I do think he raises his MVP case. Like you said, I personally do think the race is over. I think Giannis has it, but there's still about 30 or so games left. So let's see how both teams finish out. It looks like the Bucks are on pace for 70. If they slide and maybe lose 5, 6 games, and LA keeps going the way they're going, and LeBron's numbers are good, and LeBron is able to have a good game against Giannis and the two remaining games in LA, then I think he puts himself back into the MVP competition for sure. He's in it now. Some folks say he have him winning it. I personally don't, but I do think if he can finish strong and get wins against the top tier teams in the league, because I think they have Houston left with one,
Mm.
and who's also playing good. Those two guys are making MVP as well, especially with Westbrook over the past eight or so weeks. He's really been balling. If they can get some quality wins against really good teams, then I think LeBron raises his case and can probably steal an award that has been Giannis's for 4 months.
My thing with what LeBron has done, especially when you add to the narrative of being in year 17, probably the best year 17 player we've ever seen, and
Yeah,
then also to your point about what the Bucks have done. Obviously, Giannis averaging near 30 points per game,
yeah,
13 rebounds, 5 assists, really efficient. They've been able to win. But one of the unique things that LeBron can always have in his toolkit is that the Lakers don't win or play as effectively when he's not on the floor, as
definitely.
opposed to what Giannis is. Obviously, their whole system is Giannis in terms of him just attacking downhill, creating for their shooters on the outside, and they've been able to win in that fashion. But they still win when Giannis doesn't play. So
Yeah,
for LeBron, his argument can always be, well, when I'm not on the floor, this team is a totally different beast, especially when you add, AD is going to be probably a defensive player of the year candidate. He's going to be an all NBA first team performer. So to see them have this steep drop off when he doesn't play is it's really striking. But that goes to show you the type of impact that LeBron has.
for sure.
Um,
I think. Go ahead.
no, for what we spoke about off air a lot, the best player in the league, and you
Yeah,
always make a point that you think that is vacant in
yeah,
terms of being a clear cut number one. So for
yeah.
me, I think over the last couple of years, LeBron is amongst the best players, but I don't think he's had the undisputed crown. So Can you just break down that theory? Although some might say Kawhi, some might say Giannis. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the last time LeBron was the clear cut best was maybe 2017. I think 18 the Cavs slid, but his playoffs from games 1 through 18, it was like wow, no one's close to him. Then he goes to the finals and he has a really first game, has some blunders in the end, so it looks like okay, it's questioned again. But for the most part, no one has ever clearly taken it from him. So the argument would be KD, he was close, right? But then KD gets hurt because he was a warrior. His numbers won't be what LeBron's were, and he also doesn't have the benefit of carrying an extra weight or carrying load, right? So that's kind of why LeBron has been able to still remain or have the crown. Now, last year LeBron goes out with the injury, so of course he can't be the best, right? And then Kawhi had as good of a month as we've seen, right? He was taking the Sixers down to the wire every game. I know he kind of buried the team in Game 7, something that you weren't too happy about. He had a few 40s in the series. He was shooting lights out. Then he goes to the finals, and he plays a really hampered Warrior team, but he wins, right? So no excuses. It's June. Everyone's hurt this time. He wins, right? So for a little while, he made a case like, yeah, he's. Although I wouldn't say he's the best, he probably reserved the right to be called the best in that space, right? The year starts, right? And he's playing every other game. He's taking off, and he also went through a pretty bad stretch, right? For a large part of the season, he was shooting 42 to 40%. So he wasn't looking like the best player on top of being injured. He's coming back some games hampered. Now, Giannis kind of picked up where he did right before they collapsed to Kawhi. Giannis was arguably had the best season of any player. He was the MVP, and from October to May, he was the best player. Faces Kawhi, he gets shut down. That falls. The year starts and Giannis picks it up again, right? So I do think it's vacant. If I had to say someone, I would say Giannis is playing like the best player so far. But Giannis does have to prove that he can get past actual team in the playoffs to reclaim that throne, right? And it's not just about losing, right? Because players lose all the time. But had he gone out like a LeBron went out in '09, different story, right? Gone out, if you go out and just like, whoa, he lost, but I don't know what else he could have done, right? But it's like he went out, he had some poor games, he really struggled. He got shut down by Kawhi, so that hurt his case. Case of LeBron, I think LeBron is around the top three players, right? 3 to 4. He's in the conversation. I don't think he can be the best anymore. He's in year 17. I don't think you get the same output at the same men as he gave you 7 years ago, right? Which is understandable. I do think a lot of times he's relied on the fact that, I'll get through the season. I'll have some really good games to show you that I'm here. My team probably won't finish where we think they should. The playoff time will come, and I'll put us on my back. Regardless of who we play in the East, no one will beat me, right? And that's kind of carried him. Now, different story. He's older. He's in the loaded West. He does have AD. LA is expected to have a pretty a mild first round. They should beat whoever they play. Second round, depending on who they play, this has a struggle. But LA is one of the favorites. It's definitely a top 2 to 3 team. So I do think that the competition is currently vacant. I think that on any given day, you can argue for LeBron when his play over replacement value is so high, right? Like through the roof, and they don't play well without him at all. Kind of in a shocking manner, right? You would think a team on pace for like 65 wins would play good without their best player, at least decent. But they look really bad without. It looks like this team is like maybe an AC without LeBron. So that helps his argument for best player. And I don't think Kawhi's in the discussion, to be honest. I think there's probably 3 or 4 guys having better season than he is. I think both Russ and James are currently playing better than him. He does have the benefit of having the last championship and the last round MVP, so that helps him. But no, he's missed too many games. It was some games he played where the Clippers have got killed. They got beat by like 25 by Memphis. So some games where he played where they haven't looked good. And I just think as long as he plays, go through years playing 55, 60 games, he will keep himself out of that argument, right? Of being like the clear cut best. The playoffs start, possibly he can be the best turn on. That's when it counts, right? He's in for the long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But I just think that I don't feel comfortable giving someone the best player for playing 60 games versus someone who's playing 80, right? Just not fair in my book. So it's vacant. If someone told me forced me to pick one, I'd say Giannis is looking like the best player currently, but we'll see who's the best come May and June.
See, I think you make some good points there in terms of just even though there's players within the argument of the best, that
Yeah.
you can poke holes in each of them. And I
Yep.
think the closest thing, the closest that I would ever say somebody has come to really undisputedly taking, you think it was Kevin. I think it was Steph Curry in 2016.
Oh. Oh yeah.
If
For sure.
if you
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you look at, you
Got
know,
it.
2015, going into
Yep.
2015, LeBron is the best player, and
Yeah.
then the Warriors surprise everyone for the regular season. They
Yep.
win 67 games. Steph wins MVP, but it was arguable between him and James
Yep.
Harden. So
Yep.
when LeBron up until that point, four straight finals, he's coasting in the regular season, and then they have to recalibrate that whole Cleveland organization.
Yep.
Then you go into the finals and just that whole playoff run, and LeBron showcases why he's the best player in the league. Even though
Mhm.
they lost, to do what he did for that whole run, average close to 39 points per game, 13 rebounds, near 10 assists. I mean, just
Yep.
otherworldly stuff. He showcased he's the best player.
Yep.
But then when you get to 2016, I think the 2016 season for Steph really just put a stamp on his 2015 and
Yep.
just that entire season. He won an MVP by December. They won 73. He's the face of that. He's the engine for all of that. But then you get to the playoffs, and when he gets hurt, Golden State is still winning 2 rounds. Then he
Yeah.
comes back uh, against OKC. He doesn't play the best. Clay saves them to a certain degree. They still win. And then you go to the finals, and LeBron stakes his claim again as, no, it's me. I'm the one. Y'all got to catch up.
Yep.
So anytime he's really been tested, he's been able to, come
Back.
back and say,
Yep.
now to your point about Kevin, even though Kevin won on the Warriors and he's the best player on the Warriors, in the fashion in which he put it together, it's always going to be questions there.
Yep.
So now, even though people might not want to give it to LeBron, especially that 2018, 2019, you're still looking for that guy to say, okay, who's outright?
This is mine. Yep.
To your point about Giannis, while Giannis is exceptional, I mentioned his numbers this year. They're on pace for 70. They've been able to do all these things. There's spaces in his game, and you mentioned the Kawhi series last year, where
Yeah.
he still looks severely limited.
Yep.
And to your point about just the opposition that he'll have to go through to really get that level of respect, um, if you look at the matchups this year, the East is much weaker. I think the most
Yeah.
well-rounded team in the East is Boston. I think
Yeah.
that they can play a variety of styles. You
Mhm.
mentioned the matchups with the Lakers. Uh, they beat the Lakers once in Boston. The Lakers came back and beat them in a tough game
Mhm.
a couple of weeks ago in LA. But then you look at all of their premier matchups, whether it was against Houston, whether it was against the Clippers, they match up with every team. And
Yep.
for
Really well.
me, put the Bucks in the series. A lot of what Giannis does is going downhill, getting shots in the paint, and creating. When you put that wall up and you're able to throw bodies at him, it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to stop him with one guy,
Mhm.
but you have to be able to throw multiple bodies at him and put the wall up. His
Mhm.
game looks relatively elementary at times,
Mhm.
and it makes you wonder, in terms of the other players in that argument of being the best, the Kawhis, the LeBrons, the Hardens, they never look that bad.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, I agree with you. I just go back to LeBron, right? How sometimes he makes folks mad in the clutch, right? There's a narrative that he's not clutch, right? Folks who know he's clutch, and I think folks who really know get angry like, yo, LeBron, we've seen you be one of the best ever in the clutch, and I get touched, right? So with LeBron, it's like, yo, why is he doing this? Why is he playing this way? To your point about Giannis, sometimes it looks like he's helpless in the clutch, like he can't do anything. And to your point about like going downhill, we all know playoff times, pace slows down, half court gets more crucial, defenses turn up. Typically, teams shoot lower percentages, elite players shoot lower percentages, role players don't play as well, right? So it's a time where you need your guy, your MVP, to really show up. So we don't know how Giannis. while he scores in the half court, a lot of it is like secondary, like break kind of things. I mean, like
Mm,
defense is not set up, or he's going that hill, you can get in front of him. Those things historically haven't shown to work the same way in the playoffs, right? We've seen LeBron shoot 56%, 56% in the year, and he'll play Chicago and shoot 46%, right? So
mm.
we've seen those drop offs, right? And we're talking about Boston is a team with a lot of bodies, depth, guys who will have to defend as well. Toronto's also, I mean, Kawhi's
Right.
gone, but they don't pick the same thing. They got a lot of bodies. Toronto's GM is deserves a lot of credit. They draft really well. They retooled really well after DeMar. They retooled well after Kawhi. All through they've been developing young guys. So they got some really tall guys they can throw at Giannis as well. So nothing looks like a cakewalk, right? Now you expect him to overwhelm these teams, but I think it's gonna be difficult, right? Philly, disappointing, but they also have two top 20 players, right? One guy probably in the top 10 to 12. So it looks like if they can flip a switch, right? And I think that's probably the most like the that's the furthest reach of everyone we're naming. But if they can flip the switch, they can match up with anyone, right? They have the size, they have the skill. The shooting may hurt them, but they have the best big in the Eastern Conference. Like so, it's so like Giannis. While teams are weaker, Giannis may have a tough time down the stretch against some of these teams that with guys who are not so much smaller than him, right? So yeah, it's gonna be tough.
There's a just to point out some of the teams that you mentioned. You mentioned Philly, you mentioned Boston and Toronto. There was some matchups this year that give me some cause to pause in terms of how Giannis has or how he's perceived has gotten better.
Yep,
His confidence has definitely grown. And when you
yep,
win an
as it should.
MVP, you can never really deny a player's placement within the league. But you
Yep,
can go back to the Christmas game against Philly. He shoots
yeah,
8 for 27.
yep,
You can go to the Toronto game a couple of days ago in Toronto, while Milwaukee did win, considering the fact that Toronto has dealt with so many injuries, the fact that they've still been able to maintain and sustain to come back without you know Marc Gasol for an extended period of time. They lose Kyle Lowry for some
hmm
time. Fred VanVleet, Pascal, to still be able to you know push Milwaukee in the fashion that they did and hold Giannis to 12 points for the majority of the game. He did end up coming on late, but that was when the game was out of reach to a certain
hmm
degree. Uh, you can look to the Miami game a couple of days ago to for the way that Bam Adebayo played him and just the way they were able to get physical with him, make
yeah,
him put the ball on the floor, and not necessarily put it on the floor in the means to drive and kick, but to create for his own shot.
yeah,
He's still in some respects needs more work, and I think
yeah,
that teams, if you can in the series, they don't really necessarily fear him as the competition rises.
nope,
If they play Orlando or they play Brooklyn without a
he's good.
KD or Kyrie,
Yeah,
that should be wins.
yeah,
But if you play a Miami or a Philly in the second round, 4 or 5 seed, that could change a lot of things. Make give you a cause to pause there.
hmm
For what you've seen, you mentioned the Rockets and how Russ has been playing over the last couple of months. They went all in on small ball, and I
yeah,
only transitioned to the Rockets because there's been a lot of back and forth between James and Giannis, and James made a point to say, well, if I was 7 feet, you
yeah.
know, it wouldn't take much for me to be able to go downhill and dunk all day. It doesn't
hmm
take much skill. So what is your thoughts on that back and forth and what James really was alluding to there?
Yeah, so we spoke about this a lot, and I told you that I mean, like, I've never liked the narrative that Giannis has this old school mentality, right? Oh, he's not friends with nobody. Because I personally think that um, you're my good friend, but if we get into like a competition, I'm trying to win, right? So I don't think that being someone's friend stops you from wanting to win games, right? So I think that's just a narrative that people push and they try to oversell it, right? So, but it looks like Giannis has begun to trying to embody that and live it, right? So it's as if I have to have like not beef, but I mean, I don't need anyone, right? So, he took some shots at James. I thought it was unwarranted, right? It wasn't called for, but to spoke about James' defense. It's an all-star game, right? But three-quarter people don't play defense anyway, right? So it was it was a weird shot, right? And it backfired because when push came to shove, you didn't play well in the fourth, right? Like had you been you, maybe you have a chance. The game was in reach, but you didn't score at all, right? And some plays James was on you, so it came out weird. And to James' comment, yeah, of course he's being a little facetious, right? Like we all know Giannis has skill. Like you don't average 30 and 13 and 5 without any skill, right? But I think he points out, and I mean that as good as he may seem, there's limits to his game, right? And there's an ease at which he does stuff that um doesn't make him able to do that same things when it gets tough. So he's good, right? He has a willpower. He has relatively good skill, but for the most part, I think folks know that in comparison to other guys who may be like a KD, who's really basically Giannis' height, the skill level is just so far off, right? Or to a LeBron who's 6'9", right? But the skill level is just not the same, right? With Giannis, a lot of it is the willpower and the athleticism and the strength, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what he meant. So James took it a little far, but I do think there is a little substance there where this guy isn't as talented as or as skilled as some other players. I mean, who would be that tall, and the game is made it easier because of his the nature of his stature. Not a knock, right? NBA players are tall, right? LeBron is tall, KD is tall. Like that's part of the game. KD has long arm, right? But I think with Giannis, it's a little like, whoa, you could take like 4 steps and be like past 3 point line, be a half court to the basket. Like that's a little like that's the advantage. So I think that's what he was alluding to. Also, take it with a grain of salt because they have beef now. So I'm gonna say things to make you look worse than what you really appear. So that's how I take that.
So while we've been speaking about LeBron and Giannis,
Yeah.
who would you put in terms of a dark horse MVP or people that may not necessarily be getting the attention that might be warranted?
So I'm gonna say Russ is having a really good 2.5 months. Like efficiency through the roof. Shooting the best he's ever shot. He's really scoring the basketball. He has a few 40 point games. I think he's up to four now.
Mm,
Every primetime game he's at it. Right. The Laker game is the Boston game. Like every game where they needed, he's their money guy. And James, who's on pace to having a historic scoring year again. He still having one, but he was on pace for almost 40. He's dropped off because Russ has really picked it up, right? And picked it up in an efficient manner to the point where he's
mm,
he's a bit more dependable than James. So Russ won't get the votes he probably deserves. He'll probably finish fourth or fifth. If actually from fifth to sixth, but he's having a really good season. Tatum is having a really good third season, especially
mm.
like the last six weeks or so. He's breaking
Right.
a tear, adding over
Mm,
30 points. He has a few 40 point games also. Boston is jockeying for that 2-3 spot, so he's someone who will get some looks as well. Miami has been a good surprise. They still struggle with consistency. I don't think Jimmy gets much votes, but I do think that the Heat look like a formidable squad, largely in part to Jimmy coming over. So and also Anthony Davis will get some votes, right? Being playing with LeBron obviously hurts him a little bit, but AD will finish in the top five candidates for MVP. Just because he's having a really good year on defense, he'll probably be awarded for player of the year. If maybe him or Giannis possibly. And he'll average 27 points. He'd be a leading scorer on a team that will be the first team in the West. So he'll make a really compelling case. I think ultimately you decide while he's the leading scorer, he's not the best player or most important player. So that's probably
mm.
why he won't get Nas over LeBron, who will probably finish a close second, depending on how it goes. Right? Some folks saying Giannis may have a unanimous MVP. I don't see that happening. I think that's really tough. But if not, LeBron may get some first place votes for sure. Right? So those are a few of the guys who have MVP. I think Giannis the favorite, but or I think LeBron will get close. I think Tatum will get votes. I think Russ will get votes. I think AD will generally get some votes. Butler will make get some nods. He probably won't really get votes, but I don't think those 4 or 5 guys I named, James will also get some votes as well. So those guys are probably round the five out.
Um,
Giannis, go ahead.
just to really key in on that point, whatever votes that AD might or attention he might get, it's always gonna veer towards LeBron in that way. But I
Yep.
want to, just kind of tap in and kind of wrap up a couple of things, more so to what you're saying in regards to LeBron.
Yeah.
If Giannis gets 70,
Yeah.
I think that'll put a stamp on it or close to it, whether it be like
Yep.
67,
Yep.
68 wins. I think that'll put a stamp on it in a way where you can't really rely on the stats for Giannis
Yeah.
because while he is putting up his 30, 13 to 5, or close to 14 to 5, 14 rebounds and 6 assists,
Yep.
the thing that helps LeBron is the fact that he's in year 17, like that
Yeah.
narrative of year 17,
Yep.
25 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, leading the league in assists at this late of an age, advanced age,
Mhm.
to push a Laker team that'll probably win close to 63 to 64 games.
Mhm.
For LeBron to be the face of that, I think that kind of negates what Giannis' stats are. So Giannis' team has to probably win.
That's a really good point. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
I like that a lot. Yeah, they have to really, because if LA finishes a game or two out, besides Milwaukee, then you're like, oh,
Hmm.
I mean, like this
Right.
guy is 35 years old. So yeah, so I think they have to really start putting, and they've done it, but they got about not 8 or 9 losses now, so they got to start putting away losses, right? If they can finish this way, then cool, he got it. But if they hit a rough patch for a 4 or 5 game like swing in 10 where they lose, then you're like, and I mean it'll get really interesting. I don't know if LeBron will pull it, but I think the door will be wide open at that point. So yeah, really good point.
Great conversation, man. I
Sure,
want to thank you for tapping in. We'll have a lot more to discuss as the
definitely,
season goes on. We could break down a lot more of the rookie of the year discussion as that goes on as
for
well.
sure.
I want to give Zion a couple of more games to really tap into that
Yep,
conversation. They're close and battling for that eighth seed. Obviously, Memphis has it right now. Portland and San
yep,
Antonio are gauging that particular one. So we're going to give that a couple of more weeks before we dive into that discussion. I know you have a lot of thoughts on that. So I just
definitely.
want to thank you for tapping in on this MVP potential discussion, and we got a lot more to discuss. So thank you for your time, man.
Thank you as well, man.
All right, we'll speak soon.
Appreciate it.
This is
Definitely,
Ask Isaiah. I'm Isaiah Rose. I want to thank my guest Frank Teah for tapping in.
no
Thank you
doubt,
for tapping in as well. Hit like, subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll be back with much more.
for sure.